This video may very well be one of the most important videos you will ever watch because I'm going to give you 5 ways that you can tell that you are a growing, spiritually mature Christian. That's coming up today on The Beat. Hey, my friend, welcome to The Beat. My name is Alan Parr. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time here on this channel, we answer frequently asked questions about the Christian faith. We talk about dating and relationships from a Christian perspective, and we do all sorts of other Bible-based videos as well. So if you're new, consider subscribing. So today it is Friday, and as you all know, we are going through the book of Ephesians, one chapter at a time, and we are now in Ephesians chapter 4, and last week I gave you 7 signs that you can tell if someone is spiritually immature. And today I want to flip it around and give you 5 ways that you can tell that you are spiritually mature, or to put it another way, you are growing as a Christian. And hey, if you have anything that you want to add to this list, do me a favor and leave it in the comment section below, or any other questions you have about this subject. The first thing that I want to encourage you to take a look at if you are trying to assess whether you're growing spiritually or not is this area of integrity. Notice what Paul says in chapter 4, verse 25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Now, this Greek word for falsehood is actually the word pseudos, from which we get our English prefix pseudo, hence the word pseudonym or fake name. And it refers to anything that is fake, phony, false, or things that appear to be one way and are actually not. So there are many ways that we could be guilty of pseudos. One way would be exaggerating. So let's say you're telling a story and you just stretch the truth, right? That is a form of pseudos or lying. Or maybe you're making a false promise. Maybe you say, hey, I'm going to give you a call back, man. Or hey, I'm going to meet you at this place, when all in your mind, you know that you don't have any intention of calling that person back. That is an example of pseudos. Or whenever somebody catches you in something that you didn't expect, and instead of just telling the truth, you try to save face by telling some sort of excuse or something like that. And then finally, some people just straight up lie. That is clearly a sign of pseudos. So whenever you become more of a man or woman of your word, this is a sign that you are growing spiritually. The second way we can tell whether we are growing spiritually or not is how we handle our anger. Notice what Paul says here in verse 26. In your anger, do not sin. So let's stop right there. He doesn't say that you shouldn't get angry, but he says whenever you do get angry, do not sin in the midst of your anger. Now let's continue. Do not let the sun go down while you are angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. And so some people handle their anger in aggressive ways, like outbursts of anger and cursing and slamming doors, and God forbid any sort of physical abuse. These are not godly ways of handling our anger. And then other people are more passive aggressive with their anger. Maybe they shut people out, they give people the cold shoulder, they give people the silent treatment, they hold grudges against people. This is also not a healthy way to control or handle your anger. Or they withhold certain things from their spouse when they're angry with them. Instead, Paul says that we as Christians should be the peacemakers in the relationship. So whenever things are not going well, we should be the ones to initiate peace and to initiate conversation, especially in situations when we were the one that was wrong in the offense. And notice real quick that Paul gives us a time frame in which to handle all of the offenses. He doesn't say just do it whenever you want to. He says do not let the sun go down in your anger, which is basically saying do it immediately, do it quickly, because whenever you don't, you're giving the devil a foothold or an opportunity to creep into your relationship. You may have heard me say this before. Whenever you and someone else are not speaking to each other, the devil is speaking to both of you. The third is an area that we seldom talk about in the church, and this is this idea of stealing. Notice what Paul says here in verse 28. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. Okay, there's a lot in this verse, and most of the time when people think of stealing, they think of robbing a bank. But stealing in its most basic sense simply means to take something that's not yours without permission. So we could be guilty of stealing from our jobs if we're taking supplies, printer paper, pens, paper clips, and all those different things home with the excuse that, you know what, they don't pay me enough anyway, so I deserve this. That is is stealing. Or I'll throw this one in here since it is around tax time. If you are claiming certain things on your taxes that you know in your conscience that you cannot claim, that is stealing from the government. Or if you have free cable and you are calling it a blessing from God, you are stealing. And then finally, we can be guilty of stealing from God. Let's say you make up your mind to give a certain percentage to God, whatever that percentage may be, and then things come up and you take what you have promised to give to God and spend it on something else. I would suggest that that is a form of stealing because you're taking something that really doesn't belong to you, but ultimately belongs to God. The fourth way you can tell that you are growing spiritually is by your speech or how you communicate with other people. So much in this verse, I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. First of all, verse 29, it says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth." So the first thing you want to assess is what you are saying. What is your conversation? Are you cursing at people? Are you putting them down? Are you criticizing them? Are you devaluing them? What is the content of what you are saying? If that is unwholesome or rotten or negative, he says that is not godly communication. But not only what we say, but when we say it is very critical and can be a determining factor as to whether someone is going to receive what we are saying or not. Notice what Paul says here in verse 29, "But only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment." And so wise people, as we grow spiritually, we have to be in tune with the people that are around us to say, hey, is this the right time to be able to share the things that God has put in my heart to share with that person? So sometimes we can say the right thing, but it may not be the right time. But not only what we say is important and when we say it is important, but how we say it is probably the most important thing. Notice a couple things that Paul says. It says only such a word that is good for edification, and then it says so that it will give grace to those who hear. Essentially, he's saying that you can have all the right things to say, you can choose the right time, but if you don't say it in a word that communicates grace and builds them up and edifies them, more than likely it is not going to be received well. And then the final way that you can tell if you are growing spiritually and becoming more like Christ is this area of forgiveness. Notice what it says in verse 32, "Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ has also forgiven you." So the more you can extend forgiveness to those who have offended you and hurt you, the easier that this becomes in your life. This is a determining factor or a determining sign as to whether you are truly growing spiritually, because whenever you do that, you are exhibiting and displaying that you are looking more and more like Jesus Christ. If you found this video helpful in any way, feel free to share it with a friend. Also, if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you would subscribe, check out some of the other videos. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on The Beat.